Welcome to During Work Hours, episode 3, y'all. Pumped to have you.
We've made it.
We have made it. Justin, what is going on, my man? Good to see you.
Good to see you. I hurt my finger at basketball
Oh,
yesterday. I still finished the game. It was purple yesterday, so we made it, but who needs doctors?
what are we wearing shirt-wise?
This is a fun little local t-shirt. It's got some koi in the background, because I'm not shy. So,
I got
uh,
here we go. Panda party today. Because this is gonna be
wow.
a party.
We are Japanese themed out.
We love it. We got a fun, action-packed episode here for y'all today. We are going to be starting a new segment. We're going to be doing division previews. And so what that will entail is we are going to go through every division and every single team, and we will be talking everything about that team, fantasy relevance, and then we're going to eventually be hitting every single team. So that's kind of moving forward what to expect from our episodes until we get to preseason games where we will move forward with preseason game takeaways and really get into the thick of draft season and kind of set you up for success with draft strategies and everything. But we're going to try starting every episode with fantasy football, like relevant news and anything that's kind of breaking or big because training camp starts today, Justin. So I'm going to kind of hand it over to you. Anything you want to call out news wise? I know we don't have too much right now.
First, I have a story for you.
Oh,
Everyone knows Matt loves massages. He gives great massages.
fun fact,
Uh,
we've gotten a couples massage together.
I actually totally forgot about that. So me and my partner went to get a couples massage. We go to this like school here because it's a lot cheaper and they actually try harder usually, and do a little bit better of a job. But they put us in separate rooms this time because that was just what they had available. We get there, the person for my partner comes up and says, "Right this way to your room." She comes back and says, "I'm not sure where he is. I think he might be going to the bathroom right now." So like 5 minutes goes by and I'm waiting, and he finally comes up. Now, I usually don't care about this, but it has relevance to the story. My guy walks up, he's like 350 pounds, and he says, "Sorry about that. Why don't you come back this way?" He opens the door to this room that has a little bathroom attached. The bathroom door is open. My man took the biggest dump in the world in this bathroom clearly right before I got in here. It smelled so terrible. And he left the bathroom open. There is a bathroom just outside of this room. So I don't know
Oh,
why my man decided to go in here. He says, feel free to get ready and I'll be right back in. So I'm like, you know what? It's fine. It'll dissipate. My head's in the thing. I'll just put the sheet over. It should be okay. I'm way too nice. I should have just like asked for another room or something. I don't know. Anyway, we get into this. I get ready. He comes back in. He is like, okay, you ready to go? And I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so he is like resting his stomach on me throughout the massage. He is dripping sweat onto my back. And I'm like, I've really come to the conclusion that I'm way too nice because I'm just like, it's not this guy's fault. He's like working really hard. So he is doing all that. He comes around to the front to go do my shoulders and he sits down. I am staring right at his junk. His stomach is resting on the back of my head. And this is the grossest part. I can smell this man.
oh,
And I'm losing it. I'm like half like trying so hard not to laugh, trying so hard not to like be like totally upset. He is still dripping sweat on me. My headphones fall out because he was just doing this weird technique, and I can hear him breathing so hard because he's working so hard. So this is and the whole time, and it's a 90-minute massage, Matthew. It is a
oh.
90-minute massage, and we are 30 minutes into this thing. We're going through all this. I'm trying to ignore it. He has me flip over. He is massaging my head. He is falling asleep. This is him. This is my impression of him. And I'm losing it. I'm laughing. I think he can tell. Anyway, that's my massage story. I
Man. You need like redemption here. I don't even know how to respond. This is the worst massage I've ever heard of.
Yeah, it was torture. I think someone had it out for me. I thought I was on a show. So anyway, what about you? What news do you have training camp?
I think we got some fun ones floating around. Just some quick little well, we got a non-rumor. Brandon Ayuk officially requested a trade from the Niners. I don't think a trade will come to fruition, but I will say if it does come to fruition and Brandon Ayuk is not on the Niners, Debo ADP will skyrocket in my rankings. I think without Brandon Ayuk, suddenly you're removing the roller coaster of which Niner is going to be the one to have an amazing week. So that's definitely one we're keeping an eye on. There was some rumors of Devontae Adams to the Jets, which I also don't think will happen. And Adam Schefter said he expected not to, and that was just baseless. So those are kind of the fun ones we're keeping a tab on, but we'll up to date every episode on any recent news.
Yeah, I did see Devontae's agent came out and said he's not getting traded. So there has been rumors for some other teams. Patriots apparently were interested. So
My Garrett
you know,
Wilson stocks would plummet if he went to the Jets.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go ahead and hop into our division rundown. I'll start with a team and then I'll hop over to you after I'm done.
Yeah, and just for our viewers, today we'll be doing NFC East and AFC East. So, Justin, who is your first AFC East team we're talking about?
We are talking about the Miami Dolphins. The
Tua.
Fins. Fun facts about Tua is he led the league in passing yards last year.
That's crazy.
It is very crazy. I did not even realize that he sneakily did that. The defense could take a step back. They've lost a lot of key players. Christian Wilkinson's gone. They tried to replace him as best they could. I just don't feel like they did a great job at that. What that means for Tua is if the defense is taking a step back, I think he's going to be playing a lot more. That could either mean more interceptions or that could mean playing from behind, which means more touchdowns and more yards. So he is my QB 12, a fine option if you need like a mid-round QB that won't run a lot. So I do like Tua, just not that much.
Yeah, Tua, I'm not really looking at in one quarterback leagues. He's someone I look at as I'm gonna not focus on the draft with him, but if I like week one, week two, he's a streaming quarterback that I'm looking at for sure. And I agree with you. I think they'll be in tons of shootouts, and that offense it can clearly score a lot of points. And so they're more fun fantasy wise from like their playmakers perspective in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Which brings me to my running backs. And this is going to shock, I think, a lot of people. I want nothing to do with the Dolphins running back room.
Mm.
I think they are due for a major TD regression. We saw them score a ridiculous amount of TDs, mainly Raheem's scoring those, but there's just too many mouths to feed. They scored 27 touchdowns. 27 touchdowns is insane.
Yeah, Raheem
Um,
was a huge, like, fluky touchdown for his age. It was insanely efficient.
Insanely efficient. He is going to be 32, and that is going to definitely step down, especially with a healthy, possibly healthy Achan. So, but they did draft a fourth round running back that could be stealing some touches that I actually do like if you're trying to take a flyer.
Yeah, I think my 2 cents would be Devon Achan feels maybe, if not one of, but definitely one of the highest polarizing players in drafts right now. And I agree with you. I don't want him just for the fact that his price tag is basically a second round draft pick right now for someone who we saw a really small sample size of. And I think he has the ceiling to finish as RB1, but he also, his floor is so low that the risk of a second round draft pick being a bust is much higher than a lot of other second round players that you could take.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. His current ADP, I've seen him at 9, and
Crazy.
that is wild for someone who's not technically the starter.
And that rookie is Jalen Wright, for anyone who does not know the rookie they drafted. But I think the players people will be more excited about are the pass catchers, I'd imagine.
There's a reason that Tua led the league in passing yards. We have Tyreek, I can't rank Tyreek any lower than wide receiver 2 with really only CD above him. There's guys that I think could very well pass him this year. It's just with the production we've seen year after year. And even though he's 30, he still runs hard and he still looks great. So,
That was my point. I was like, he might be the fastest 30-year-old I've ever seen. And so that's like my devil's advocate is like, can he keep this up? But it's a like I'm gonna trust it till I don't see it. And so yeah, I agree with you. Wide receiver 2 and number 3 overall is very much like worth it for Tyreek.
yeah, there's no denying what he can do. I really expect to see similar usage to last year if he stays healthy. And there's really just no one like him. I don't think we've ever seen someone like Tyreek
He
in the
might be the
league.
scariest person to play against when I see him
Yeah,
on my opponent's roster.
yeah, and you can barely see him when he's out on the field. So yeah, Waddle, on the other hand, is I could see him getting a little bit of an uptick from last year. We've seen how talented he could be when he's on his own. He is number 2, but the ceiling is high for him. And we saw him go over 1,000 yards, but only 4 TDs. I think TDs are always going to be his issue. And playing behind Tyreek, his current ADP is 18, which is one spot below where I have him at
Mm.
my 19. So
I've never been that big of a fan, but only because of a price fantasy perspective of he feels like one of the first wide receiver 2s to come off the board. And I've always been someone to gravitate towards taking a clear-cut wide receiver 1 over someone who is like the clear-cut wide receiver 2, even if the offense is better. And so that's just kind of my like propensity in fantasy football. And why I don't normally like him at his price tag. Love the player. And I think like obviously if anything happens to either one of them, like injury-wise, Tyreek or Waddle, the other is gonna go to the moon. Um, and yeah, for me, he is more of a boom bust player where he'll have on weeks, off weeks, and I would rather get consistency from a player, which is why I tend to avoid him. But yeah, yeah, right now, Dolphins win total over under is set at 9.5. We'll go through this on each team, but would you take the over or the under on their win total? What do you got him
I,
at?
I have the over.
Ooh,
I think you're gonna. Well,
just at 10 wins? Or are you going way higher?
I have him at 10 wins.
I think I just got a feeling we're hitting that under. So I'll take the other side of this.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be playoff bubble for Miami. We're talking 9-ish wins.
very tough division, which will be evident when I tell you about some other teams here in a second. But with that, let's hop over to your first team over in the NFC East.
Yeah, NFC East. I think first I want to preface NFC East. This is kind of a sneaky, underlooked division for fantasy. There is some fun things going on in this division, and we'll get into it. But first team I'm going to talk about is New York Giants, man. We got some hard knocks, not looking good of their decision makers. But that's a whole nother story. We'll kind of talk about main storylines here. They got rid of Saquon. Darren Waller retired. You want to say something about Hard Knocks, it looks like, though.
If you want to feel like you could run an NFL team, go watch this season of Hard Knocks. It's their first time doing an off season, and oh my gosh, I'm not gonna try to give any spoilers, but it feels like four people who enjoy football got around a table, drank a beer, and said,
It feels
this
like
is what
every
we're
single
gonna.
person listening to this podcast could make better decisions than they did.
Absolutely, I just do not understand. Yeah,
But
it
yeah,
feels like they're running a fantasy team poorly. So
big storyline. They got rid of their offensive stud, Saquon, to a division rival, the Eagles. So we'll talk about that later. And then not as big fantasy wise, Darren Waller retired. He did draw some targets and was clearly their tight end 1. So yeah, those are the two big things, and then it's really make or break season for Daniel Jones. And so I want to start with quarterback. Daniel Jones right now, industry ADP, quarterback 26. He is
Wow.
one of the last quarterbacks ranked. And really, to me, this doesn't line up with him for fantasy. This is a situation where I think you have to break apart how you think about the Giants as real life football and how you think about them in fantasy football. My little like experiment for you here is you have to guess what do you think Daniel Jones finished as quarterback wise for fantasy football his last full season 2022. He played almost every single game, but what do you think he finished as quarterback wise for the year in fantasy?
Ah, that's a great question. I have a loose memory of this. I didn't I My guess is 10. And that's
Final
high.
answer?
That's a high guess. I'm gonna go 10.
Real close. QB9. He
Wow.
averaged 18.4 points a game, which is honestly great for a QB in fantasy. That's like if you hit 20 a game almost, that's what you want. And for context, the QB5 was averaging 18.5 points a game. So he's basically right there with QB5. And that was his last full season. And so I just don't get like don't get me wrong, I'm not like targeting Daniel Jones in my top 10. I think I have him at like quarterback 14 personally, but he's someone where if I'm in a deeper league or I have a bigger bench, maybe I'll take a flyer on him because his rushing upside is so high and they get rid of their biggest rusher in Saquon. I would imagine that he gets even more rushing usage because Devin Singletary doesn't scare me as much at the goal line compared to Saquon. And then you go out and you draft a star wide receiver as a rookie, and suddenly you might have a fantasy rich environment that includes a bunch of turnovers. But yeah, I I'm much higher on him than consensus, and I'd be curious, where do you have him actually ranked right now?
And I have him at 19. You hear Daniel Jones and you're like, that is not a guy who's gonna win you football games. Here's the thing, you're not trying to win football games, you were trying to win fantasy football games. And
Can we
someone who
cue the Moneyball tip like scene where it's we're just trying to get on base.
Why do you like him?
Because he gets on base.
he will win you some fantasy weeks, especially at his ADP. If you can get him for free,
For
it's someone to
free.
take a chance on.
Yep. And then I alluded to it, but the new addition running back is Devin Singletary. Saquon is now gone. And they also drafted a rookie in Tyrone Tracy. And they're really going right now. Devin Singletary's RB 31. And largely he goes later than that in most of the mocks that we've been in. And so this is one where for a potential starting running back, if you can get him as really like your RB4, it feels like decent value right now. And I've kind of been targeting him as late. Tyrone Tracy is more of a, I'm going to leave on waivers. Maybe we talk week 1, week 2, week 3 as waivers. But that's not someone I'm really drafting right now.
Yeah, I think Devin is sneaky, and I think people saw what he could do with the Texans, and then before that the Bills. He's gonna be a safe bet. Nothing to write home about, but I'm not afraid to get him.
Yeah. We'll get into the more sexy side of the New York Giants, which is Malik Neighbors, the star-studded rookie that they drafted. And I'm going to kind of lump all the pass catchers together because I'm going to be honest, you don't really need to know any other name besides Malik Neighbors. And that's including their tight end, Daniel Bellinger. And so for tight end and other pass catchers, I'm not even going to come close to drafting any of them. None of them move the needle fantasy wise. And I can almost promise you every single league you're in, they're going to be on the waivers to start the season, and they probably should be left there. So that's what I'll say about that. But let's jump to Malik Neighbors. Wide receiver 26 right now is his ADP, and that feels pretty well placed in terms of where I have him. And he's someone who I'm expecting 20 to 25% target share with how thin the wide receiver core is outside of him. We talked about getting rid of Darren Waller and Saquon. And for a little tidbit, they vacated 130 total targets and they have to go somewhere. I'd imagine most receivers who get 130 targets clear the 1,000 yard mark. And so I'm pretty excited about him in terms of volume alone. Whether he draws a lot of double coverage because there's no one else defenders have to guard, that'll be another scheming issue. But right now, his ADP is much lower than Marvin Harrison, as an example of another rookie, kind of like his spot right now, which is like Giants as a whole. I'm targeting Singletary late and Malik kind of right in his range of like third, fourth round.
Yeah, I have him at 28.
Yeah. Fantasy football, though, the biggest indicators of success of are volume and talent, and he has both. And so, like, the metrics are kind of just flashing green, which is awesome. It's just a matter of like, okay, now go do it. Second lowest win total of the teams we'll be talking about today, set at 5.5. Would you take the over or the under?
Oh boy. I'm gonna go the under. I have to go the under.
I'm with you on that. I'm taking under 5.5. Oh man. But I will
Yeah.
say they get the Commanders twice, so
If they can pull off both of those and they just have to win three more games, it is possible they go over or at or over
yeah.
that, but it's not likely.
Looking bleak in our view. But we'll hop to the next AFC East team. Who you got?
We have the Buffalo Bills, and
Let's go Buffalo.
let's go Buffalo. Very fun fantasy team every year, and we'll start with the reason that they're usually the most fun, and that's Josh Allen. He has been dominant as a fantasy quarterback, and every year someone's like, it's all flashy numbers. He's not substance, but he continuously finishes in the top five and is one of the most impressive run QBs we've seen. He's still QB1 for me, and he will continue to be it. The big changes for him is he does have a very different wide receiver room. I think they're a group that can do a serviceable job, and which is why I still like him at QB1, and I expect him to be a top five QB pretty easily.
I think I'm a bit more scared than you are. Um, I have him at QB3 right now, and I may even move him down a little bit further. I agree, though, he will need to shoulder this offense. I think the turnovers worried me late last season. And it's more the fact of I want to see for a whole season how he does without an alpha wide receiver, or if one of these receivers step up. That gives me a little bit of pause when I would consider taking him at one. So that's why I have like Jalen Hurts and Lamar over him actually. But yeah, that's kind of my devil's advocate side to Josh Allen.
Yeah, super fair. I could see that happening, but I don't believe it. Let's move on to running back. Someone I know you like that I also like, and that's James Cook. He had a great year. He finished RB11 despite only having six total TDs.
Yeah.
He had two rushing TDs, four receiving. With the wide receiver room kind of being downgraded, I see him getting some of that target share, which is something I really like, especially in half PPR, full PPR specifically. That should make up for his lack of goal line work. He's super efficient. Matt, what do you think he finished in rushing yards, place wise, among running backs?
Ooh, place wise rushing yards. Maybe RB 13.
He finished fourth in rushing yards.
That's crazy to me.
I had no idea. I knew I liked him and I knew he finished RB11, but I guess that really shows and he finished eighth in receiving yards. So this is a guy that gets a lot of work. It's just missing the touchdowns for me. And so, yeah, it could continue that way, but even without the touchdowns to finish RB11 like that is insane. So, his ADP is 14. I have him at 11, a little bit better. I think Ray Davis, you see some early back work. He's kind of a big bruising guy, but very little reception. So they might use him, but nothing like they're going to use James Cook. He's the first running back they've kind of had like this in a while. They were typically using committee veterans past few years, so it's exciting to have somebody.
Yeah, I largely agree with you. I have him as RB9, and I think the main thing is they need him to step up this year, especially catching balls. And so, especially in a full PPR, half PPR league, he's someone that like bumps a tick up in the draft for me. And it seems like the public largely does not agree. And so he's someone that I've seen a great value in like end of the second, start of the third round, or in auction drafts, you can get him for a very reasonable price.
Moving on to receivers, it is a very different looking team for the Bills. We got Keon Coleman, who is just so athletic and hilarious. I don't know if you've seen any of his videos. They're so funny. Maybe he's right behind Jamal Williams for
Yeah.
just goofy guy for me.
That's what I was gonna say. You got like Jamal Williams, Jameis Winston, and Keon Coleman, all just interview gold.
Yeah, I'm going to be excited to watch him for years to come. So I hope that he pans out. He has great size and hands. He's going to see a ton of targets, I believe. His ADP is 47 amongst receivers. I have him at 43, so a little bit better. But he is somebody that I could see sneakily popping easily into the top 20. So, you know, the ceiling is extremely high for Keon Coleman. Anyone with Josh Allen as their quarterback and your wide receiver one, you're going to produce. A lot of changes. Someone who's not a change, who's been around, is Khalil Shakir, who has shown an ability to pop off on big plays when he took over for injured Gabe Davis, who is no longer in the picture. He does have to compete for targets with Keon, Kincaid, and they also signed veteran Curtis Samuel, but he could have some big games here and there. His ADP is 54. I do have him a little later at 58. I like Khalil, but it is someone to keep an eye on for sure. Moving on to tight end. One of the most hyped up tight ends we have is Dalton Kincaid, and he stepped up majorly when Dawson Knox went down for 5 games. You know, with the leaving of Diggs and the leaving of Gabe Davis, I think Kincaid's going to take a major step up. His ADP is 5 right now. I have him at 4.
Yeah, I think I have him at 5, so kind of right in the same range, but I'm very excited about Kincaid. And yeah, my only worry is Dawson Knox become more relevant and maybe like it comes back down to earth a bit because Dawson Knox was hurt during that time at the second half of last year when he really started exploding. And so that's kind of the only fear, but I really love Kincaid as well, and clearly the balls need to be thrown somewhere. So
Moving on to someone that I could be a little bit of a sleeper here that I don't think is really being talked about. And I mentioned him earlier, and that's Curtis Samuel.
mm,
And what excites me about Curtis is he reunites with his offensive coordinator from Carolina. He's running from the slot just like he always has. And I think he could end up being a sneaky play. His current ADP is 51. I think he could get a lot of receptions. He might not be a big touchdown or yardage guy, but if you're looking for a late round guy, especially if anyone on that receiving core gets injured, I could see Curtis kind of being that sneaky step up guy.
yeah, they have a lot of dart throws. The other fantasy news that I've kind of heard rumors of is they're in the running to maybe sign Michael Thomas. So that would maybe be interesting too if that came to fruition. But yeah, I really think any of those pass catchers are really worth a dart throw, especially with how late they are.
With that, moving on to your next team, who do you got in
Wait,
the NFC East?
we got
Oh,
win total
oh,
nine and a
win total.
half. Are you over or are you under?
Win total 9.5. I have them over
Whoa, okay, 10 wins.
11 wins.
Here's where we differ. Give me the under. Main reason, not worried about the offense. It's the defense I'm worried about. They got rid of a lot of their studs, and I'm worried that they're going to be in a shootout with no bullets every single game. And so I think that's going to start to take a toll on success in those games. And so maybe good for fantasy wise, but record wise, I'll take the under 9.5. Okay, NFC East. Next team is one of my favorite teams to target players on right now because they are so undervalued, and that is the Washington Commanders. I think they can be sneaky fun for fantasy this year. We went out and we got a new coach, Dan Quinn, amazing coach, defensive minded with the Cowboys elite defense last year. And then you also go out and sign Cliff Kingsbury as your offensive coordinator. And then you go out and you draft Jaden Daniels in the first round. And Jaden Daniels is one of those Lamar Anthony Richardson style quarterbacks where he's just a freak athlete and he loves to run and he's just a YOLO quarterback where he'll send the deep ball and he'll also run. But right now he's going as QB 12 in the industry, but I think that's too low in my opinion for someone that every week, I think he has the upside of top five, if not the number one scoring quarterback on a week. The difference is, I think there will be rookie growing pains, so he won't be as consistent as a Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. But Cliff, as the offensive coordinator, was able in Kyler's rookie season, who is a running quarterback as well. Kyler finished top 10 for fantasy his rookie year. And so I easily think it's within the realm of possibility and will be a much more up-tempo, fast-paced offense. He's going super late in drafts, and if you decide to just wait on quarterback, he is one of my favorite late quarterback targets right now.
Jaden is so athletic and fast and can make things happen, and I'm a fan of Jaden.
Yeah, we'll start with running backs. So we have Brian Robinson, industry ADP running back 29, and Austin Eckler, former Charger, running back 34 right now. Eckler's been rising as of late, so I'm curious where that actually lands when ADP's update in August. Brian Robinson has been mostly staying the same. Largely, I think I like Eckler at that range just due to his pass catching ability. And I expect this to be a team where the defense isn't very good and we're going to be playing from behind a lot. And so, even though Brian Robinson is the technical starter, I'd imagine they're probably going to be in passing down back situations a lot more than playing from ahead.
Yeah.
And so, if you play in a full PPR league or any league that gives points for receptions, Austin Eckler seems like insane value. And man, talk about a fall from grace is going number two overall in most drafts last year, and
Yeah.
now like RB 34.
Yeah, obviously Eckler doesn't have the same workload as he has in previous years, which is something from the comments he's made is exactly what he's always wanted.
Mhm.
So I have Brian at 30 and I have Eckler at 32. So a little bit higher than ADP on Brian and a little bit lower on Eckler.
And almost no risk where you can get him at this year. We're going to get into the wide receivers. So the main one I want to talk about is Terry McLaurin. Right now, he's going as wide receiver 31. Awesome mid-round target. How many quarterbacks can you guess that have been his quarterback? He's been in the league for 5 years. Let's see how
Oh
many
my
you can get.
gosh. I'm drawing a blank on all Commanders. He's
You would have gotten some of these. Some I don't think you would have gotten, but Case Keenum, Dwayne Haskins, Colt McCoy, Alex Smith,
oh,
Kyle
I
Allen,
forgot.
Taylor Heineke, Garrett Gilbert, Carson Wentz, and Sam Howell. And so hearing that list, this next stat is just crazy to me. Outside of his rookie year, in which he got 919 yards, he's been in the league for 5 years. He's gone over 1,000 yards with those quarterbacks. And so sky's the limit if Jaden Daniels actually pans out for Terry McLaurin. But to get back to fantasy wise, wide receiver 31, he is someone I love in the middle rounds to target and I think is an amazing value. And like we talked about, they got rid of Curtis Samuel. And this is actually one of the craziest stats. They vacated 274 targets this offseason. That is the third highest vacated targets in the league, and they
Wow.
have to go somewhere. If you're telling me that like a good portion of those are going to go to their number one wide receiver, I'd imagine that he is really going to outperform wide receiver 31. Yeah. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on Terry?
I just think he is so much better than what his situation has been. And the thing that scares me, I do have Terry at 26, so higher than his ADP. The only thing that scares me is the unknown of Jaden. Someone that I would love to hear your thoughts about is Jahan Dotson, who is always, someone's sleepers in past years, who's done some things, caught a lot of balls, but does he take a step up with no tight end and no Curtis Samuel?
I'm more excited about Luke McCaffrey. Uh, Reports from the team camp is just like, this is fun little clip this for anyone who listens, but Jaden Daniels took a page out of Matthew Stafford's book and started doing Breakfast Club with Luke McCaffrey. So take that as you will. We know how Cooper Cup and Puka turned out from Breakfast Club with Stafford, but Luke McCaffrey's been the only one in Breakfast Club with Jaden Daniels. And I think Jaden or Jahan Dotson is going to be the one to pay the price there. But what I would say is Justin and I love locker room players. So that's what we're going to be talking about, good guys to get on your team. And anyway, this is what I want in a middle round target. This is someone with a really high ceiling, a pretty solid floor, 1,000 yards almost every single season. And that's the kind of players I like to target in the middle rounds. But we have a over under win total 6.5. Where are you going?
I haven't looked at their schedule, but I'm gonna give them the over.
This one's really close for me too. I think I'm gonna take your side as well. I'm taking 7 wins. Give me the over. Defense scares me, but I think we get some flash of Jaden Daniels' greatness and Scary Terry carrying them. I love it. We're halfway through both divisions, so let's
Should we take a seventh inning stretch?
you could actually include this next part. I had a couple people reach out after they heard about Jonathan and us hyping up potentially going on a date with him. And so if you're one of our single listeners out there and you'd be interested in finding someone, maybe we could kind of have like a single meetup in the middle here and we could get our viewers' take. Are they compatible or not? But there was some interest for sure.
You know what I have yet to see in the world, there's a lot of fantasy content out there, and what could make us different is maybe we're fantasy dating content.
Woo! Now we're talking. This is where our listeners are kind of spicing up. If they're in the gym, maybe they're like making sure they're not playing it out loud, you know?
Finding Tinder to be too much. Is Bumble got you fumbling the bag? Has Christian Mingle not made you tingle? Well, have we got the thing for you? Fantasy Love. It is the new show coming to during work hours where we will find your sleeper candidate for your love life.
This is good. Netflix, when you're listening, you know where to find us. I love it. What's our next AFC East team here we're talking?
We're going to move on to the New England Patriots.
Ooh. This will be fast.
This this is a fun one. I mentioned it in the pre-show talk that there is a little bit of a quarterback battle. Obviously, they drafted Drake May. Drake May and Jacoby Brissett are kind of, seeing who is going to be that guy week one. And it's seeming like Jacoby is probably going to start the season. It does seem like a typical thing they do, trying to develop the guy that they drafted. And they did draft him very high. So right now his ADP is 32, which I think might be a little too low. I have him at 30. So, but he's not someone that I'm aiming for. I'd rather take a lot of different rookies than him.
Not touching him.
Moving on to running back, which I think I've mentioned in the past, it's a unsexy pick, is Ramondre Stevenson. He regressed this past season, and I don't think that he is totally to blame for that. I think there was a ton of injuries to the offensive line. QB play allowed the other teams to just load the box and Gobble him up, as they say. Despite all that, he finished RB 24 through week 13 before getting injured and not finishing the season. It wasn't too serious of an injury, so I don't expect it to affect him now. But in 2022, he finished his RB 11, and I think this could be a bounce back season for him. I think his ADP is 18, and I do have him ranked slightly higher at 20. But I have seen him go later in all of our mock drafts. So yeah, I like him. He's a guy that I would love as an RB3, maybe RB2, but RB3 feels pretty good to me.
Yeah, I have him at RB19. I'm very similar on a lot of pages. I think the additional note is rookie quarterbacks like Drake May, that are more pocket passers have a tendency to take this safety valve option of check down to their running back, which excites me for Ramondre, especially when they got rid of Zeke, who stole a lot of his goal line work last year. I'd imagine that now Ramondre is going to get a little bit of that goal line work back. So I actually do really like him at his value. And like you said, he tends to fall in drafts and a good, like, really solid RB2, RB3 option that you can get for cheap.
Moving on to wide receiver. This is a interesting wide receiver room. There's a lot of familiar names. There's people that have been around. Obviously, I am a Polk fan, but a lot of Polk's value lays in the quarterback position and Kendrick Bourne's ability to stay healthy. That being said, I think there's an excellent chance that Polk supplants Bourne as wide receiver one, regardless if Bourne is healthy or not. I think he's a do-it-all guy who got drafted in the second round by a new staff, so obviously they really like him. And so do I. At his 73 ADP, I have him at 68, but honestly, I might even move him up after kind of seeing what happens in training camp. But I like Polk a lot, and I don't see anybody else competing with him.
You know what the best part is? Not only is no other wide receiver going to compete with him, but no one else is going to compete with you when you try and draft him because he's basically at the end of drafts and I'm pounding the Polk table. Give me that as a bench late wide receiver. You want to talk about someone that has the ceiling to potentially do what Puka did? Jalen Polk, baby. I'm just like agreeing with you. Drake May is no Matthew Stafford, and Sean McVay is a totally different beast when it comes to player development. And I don't think anyone will ever replicate what Puka did in his rookie year. But I think as a late round flyer, Jalen Polk will absolutely be fantasy relevant. And he's being drafted as if he won't be. So $1 in auction drafts. You can use your last pick in snake drafts. Do it.
Yeah, obviously, if you're in a keeper league, this is someone I recommend going for. This is a guy that you could get for $1 who could be a $20 to $30 wide receiver next year. Obviously, me and you have to fight for him a little bit because we both like him and we're in most of each other's leagues.
This is one of your picks where if your league mates aren't all with it, they're not paying attention, maybe they're having a drink or two. This is the like round you take it late, or you that's when you put him on the auction board because people aren't paying attention. He's the guy that you want your league mates to be asleep when you draft him.
Yeah, this is the time if you were like, hey, does anyone want to take shots? You get everyone to take shots and you throw him on the board and you start telling a massage story or something. It, it'll work out for you.
Uh,
But
tight end or no?
yeah, I'll go over it quickly. There's not much. Henry is somebody who I think people will draft in your league in late rounds. In a 12 team, I'm probably not taking him unless a perfect storm of people taking multiple tight ends happens.
Yeah, I won't even address Hunter Henry. That's what I think about that. But I will say Patriots have the lowest over-under win total at 4.5.
Yeah,
This might be the lowest in the league. Where are you going?
might be the lowest in the league, despite mine. Give me the under.
I think I'm taking the under as well. Our next
Mo
NFC East team, we have a loyal listener, Eliana Lay, someone who in our league has always performed utmost. Usually you see her in the championships, but she's always in the playoffs, and she is an Eagles diehard fan. And honestly, she's probably just still out popping champagne from Saquon getting signed because these Eagles look like they're about to fly. Jalen
Yeah.
Hurts, QB2. I love him here. His potential, I think, might even be higher. People are worried about Jason Kelsey and his retirement. I'm not one of those people. Jason Kelsey is a really, really good center. He was getting older. And now you add someone like Saquon that has to be accounted for by the defense. They didn't have running backs last year that really scared any defense. And so, if anything, I think this is just going to open up the field more for Jalen. And you're going to see designed runs still for him. You will see Saquon at the goal line as well. But I just think this offense is going to be much more dynamic, which leads to more fantasy points for the quarterback. But
And there's a reason that he's my number two quarterback, and I think the ADP is also number two. So I like him a lot.
yep, I'm exactly aligned. Same ADP, two for me, two for the industry. But he's someone where I'm not targeting per se, but I'm happy getting him if I want to take a premium quarterback because you typically get
Yeah.
him end of round 3, start of round 4, auction draft around $25. So if you want to spend up for a quarterback, I don't have a problem with you spending up for Jalen Hurts. And
Yeah.
we'll jump to the most exciting change for this team. We've mentioned it a lot. Saquon, industry RB6. Honestly, I think his ceiling is to finish as RB1 overall. Age 27. So typically the dreaded running back age is 28. So he is not there yet. I would say the last years of his prime, but the biggest thing is he's going from a bottom 2 offensive line to a top 2 offensive line. And he finally is in an actual offense. And honestly, sky's the limit. I can't wait to see what he does for this team. Just real life. It's going to be fun seeing Saquon on an actually good team. And
Yeah.
like a defense that can't load the box up against him because they have legit wide receivers and a quarterback that can run.
Yeah.
If I'm leaving the first round with Saquon, I'm really excited about my team.
This is the first time that he gets in a place that can do something with him. Yeah, there's a lot of mouths to feed, so maybe he doesn't get the amount of carries that he got with the Giants, but I think he's going to be a lot more effective with those carries, and he just opens up this offense a ton.
And he'll get a ton more red zone opportunities than he ever did in New York. And you know what they say, if your fantasy football player can squat 600, get him on your team. Jalen, Saquon, Tush Puss, honestly, I think you should get Dallas Goddard in there and you get Saquon on one cheek, Jalen Hurts on the other. That's 1,200 pounds of squatting power on Dallas Goddard. You could throw him over the line.
And I still think I prefer the brotherly shove.
No, it's going to be the brotherly throw this season. Get into pass catchers. The main ones we're talking about. So I mentioned Dallas Goddard. I'll be quick there. Tight end 11. Not a sexy tight end, but I'm fine if you pick him as one of the last in the league to take a tight end. Um, I think he's going to be what he is. He's going to get you somewhere between 5 to 10 points, depending on if he randomly scores a touchdown that game or not. He's not going to get you a 0, but he's not going to get you the games that Laporta and Travis Kelsey or Mark Andrews might. And then wide receivers, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. So respectively, they're going at wide receiver 6 and wide receiver 21 overall. Justin, I'm going to give you some examples of wide receivers being drafted around them. You tell me if you'd rather have that receiver or the Eagles receiver. So we'll start with AJ Brown, wide receiver 6, remember, in the industry. Examples going around him. First one, Puka Nakua.
Give me Puka.
Garrett Wilson,
Give me Garrett.
Amon Ra,
Give me Amon-Ra.
Justin Jefferson.
Closer, but give me JJ.
Last one, Marvin Harrison.
Uh, Give me AJ Brown.
Okay, so there's your line. And then Devonta Smith, wide receiver 21. Here's your options. Cooper Cup,
Coop.
DK,
Uh, Give me
DK,
DK. Give me DK.
DJ Moore,
Give me DJ Moore.
Amari Cooper,
Ooh, give me Amari.
Stephon Diggs.
Give me Devonta.
Oh, okay. And then final one, Jalen Waddle, who I feel is who he's normally compared to.
Oh, this is a maybe the closest, but give me Jalen.
Okay, interesting. So right around that Diggs Jalen Waddle line and around the Marvin Harrison line. And I
Yeah.
think this is kind of my point on these ADPs. I'm very similar to you in how I would do that exercise. And the main reason is like a lot of these ADPs for Devonta and AJ Brown, it just feels a little bit too high. Um, I think it's the dolphin dilemma of you don't necessarily know who's going to have the big game. Same with like the 49ers, and it's all in how you want to construct your roster. I do think on any given day, AJ Brown and Devonta Smith could go off for 30 points, and they clearly showed that the last couple of the years, but I just don't have a tendency to draft fantasy football players like that. And especially when their price is not cheap.
I have AJ at 8 compared to his 6, I think you said, and I have Devonta at 23. So not
A
too much
little lower.
further than their
Yeah.
ADP, but definitely lower.
Yeah. Main takeaways. I love to target Saquon. And if Jalen Hurts falls to me, I love him too, but not really looking at many of the other players there on the Eagles in terms of fantasy, just based on like how they normally fall. But they have a win total of 10.5. Do you like the over or do you like the under?
Give me the over.
We are on the same page with this one. I want the over too. I think they could push 12, 13 wins to be honest. And spoiler alert for our division rankings at the end, I'm gonna have them winning the division. And so yeah, that's kind of give me the over on that 10.5 number two. It is a big one though.
Yeah, I mean it helps that 4 of your games are Washington and
Giants.
the Giants. So yeah.
Let's wrap up that AFC East. Let me go. Jets, 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 Jets.
Jets, Aaron is back
He's back,
after
baby.
missing nearly all, and I mean nearly all of the last season. Here's what I like about him. Yes, he's old, but he has one of the best lines from last season. He should be well protected, especially on getting Smith on the back side. I don't love him as a fantasy quarterback, but I do love what it means for the team around him.
I completely agree. I think the Jets are going to surprise a lot of people this year. And I think a lot of people will also shy away from them in fantasy football just because of how much they got burned last year. I would just caution take everything about last year and throw it out the window because of Zach Wilson. And when a defense plays 90% of a game, they're going to be tired and exhausted. And now, when you have an actual average, maybe he's better than average quarterback that can move the offense, I think you're going to see a night and day change from last year, which is why I would caution a lot of people to not have the recency bias of how they were burned.
I have Aaron at 21. His ADP is 20. It's not someone I would be very excited if they were my QB1, but I would imagine the rest of my team is probably pretty good if I end up getting Aaron Rodgers as my QB. At that point, I'm streaming if I'm stuck with Aaron at QB. So
Yeah. I'm not looking to draft him either. He's someone who I think is a streaming option. Given a good matchup, let's say they're playing the Patriots or something, sure, maybe on a bye week when I have no quarterback, I'll play him if there's no better option, but I'm not drafting him.
one of the reasons that I think Aaron is in the best situation he could be in as an old pocket passing quarterback is not only his line, but is this person, Brees Hall. Brees finished as RB4 despite finishing just below 1,000 rushing yards for the season. Where he made up for it was receiving. He led the league in receptions, yards, and targets as a running back. Part of this was the fact that he lived in the land of dump offs. An interesting tidbit is the Jets finished ranked 4, but we're actually 22 in run block win rate.
Mm.
So the upgrades could mean a really big season for Brees because he finished RB4 despite that run block win rate. So his ADP is 2. I have him at RB3.
Yeah, for how bad this season went for them last year, Brees Hall was a huge bright spot, and I think it's crazy where he finished with all of the obstacles. And the talent is evident. It's the first time I think Aaron Rodgers has had a back this talented. So I am excited to see how that affects the offense as a whole. But I love Brees as well. You are paying a hefty price for him, but I do think I would be very excited about a draft if I left him. He's someone where clearly, even if he doesn't have a good quarterback, he's going to perform. So he's not going to lose you your fantasy season by any means if you take him in the first round.
With that, I bring us to maybe your favorite person to get in drafts. We've talked about him a ton, so I won't go over it too much, but Garrett Wilson, the catch radius is insane. His route running is great. He's got finally a quarterback. So his ceiling is wide receiver 1. I have him as wide receiver 7. So I do have some people above him that are obvious answers, but I could see that going higher if Aaron Rodgers is able to play at any capacity that he has in the past.
Yep. I moved him. Number 2 overall, wide receiver 1, baby. Garrett Wilson.
Wow.
Devil's advocate on myself, though. I think we all know what the floor is after last season. Um, he's still produced on a fantasy likewise. It was really like consistently like mid though in terms of basically 10 points a game, which is not what you want from someone in the first round. But this is one of those where I'm willing to take the risk. Aaron Rodgers has a huge bias towards the players that he trusts. And when he got injured last season, the first thing he basically did was apologize to Garrett Wilson because he knew how good of a season that Garrett was going to have with him as a quarterback. And that's just the thing I keep coming back to is like, I can't help but know what he did with Devontae, even in the later years in Green Bay. Of this dude just locks on to his favorite target, whether it's start of the drive or in the end zone. Garrett Wilson is going to get his looks. And I think if this is even a slight improvement from last year, sky's the limit. And so I'm betting on it. But yeah, give me Garrett Wilson every single draft.
Love it. He doesn't have to compete too much with anybody else, but I do want to talk about this next player because I think people are going to want to hear about him, and that's Mike Williams. Someone they went out and got. He's a big target, but he's coming off injury. And I do expect Mike, if he's healthy, to see some really big games, mainly just downfield
Mm-hmm.
big plays. But the inconsistency scares me a lot, and his health. So I'm staying away from him for the most part unless I get him super late and there's nobody else. His ADP is 55. I have him at 59.
Yeah, he's the field stretcher. He's the guy who I hope draws the double coverage off of Garrett Wilson so that we can finally have some single coverage on him. Win total of 9.5. Where would you put him?
Come on, give me the over.
The over. I love
Oh,
it. I'm
yeah.
with you. We finished the AFC East. Why don't you give how do you think the division's gonna shake out?
Okay, so I went over and looked at each of these teams' schedules. At the bottom of the division, I have the Patriots at 3 and 15. And I have the Dolphins at 10 and 8. Yes, the
Oh,
third in the
okay.
division is 10 and 8. I have the Buffalo Bills at 11-7.
Whoa, Aaron Rodgers.
Yes, Aaron Rodgers. Give me the Jets at 14-4. I know that is insane. I'm sorry I just yelled in your ears, but I am excited. This is the highest record I've ever given the Jets. I just think they have one of the top, if not the top, defense in the NFL. They could have the top offensive line. They have a top three running back. They have a top 10, and in your opinion, top two, two wide receiver. And they have a veteran quarterback who I think can make things happen. Give me the Jets to win the division.
You are crazy. That's why we do the podcast together, though, because I have the Jets at one as well. Man, they got 7 wins last season. Just think about that. 7 wins with everything you saw going on. Suddenly, you actually have even an average offense. I think they're getting double-digit wins. So that's why I'm going Jets at one, Dolphins at two, Bills at three, missing playoffs. Patriots in the 4 spot. So we're aligned there as well. You guys can send Justin and me some dirty mail when we get this wrong. But let's go over to the NFC East, wrap up that division there with America's team, or should I say Abner's team. This is the Dallas Cowboys. And we got Dallas in a little bit of some contract conundrums right now. Will they pay Dak? Is Dak injured? Will they pay CD? Will they pay Micah Parsons? All things Jerry Jones needs to figure out. But for fantasy, I'd say we're business as usual. And to start with Dak, industry has him at QB7. I think he's a great value if you're waiting on QB. Um, Losing Tony Pollard this offseason makes the offense feel like it could be even more pass happy and pass heavy than it was last year. And so Dak is someone where I'm not like, oh my goodness, if I have the best quarterback in fantasy, but I also think he's great to target just kind of as like a middle of the pack uh RB or QB1. But yeah, you feel differently or similar?
Yeah, I like Dak a lot. I think he is always an underrated fantasy quarterback. He's finished pretty high in years past. I have him at 8.
Okay. Pretty similar to ADP.
Yeah.
Running backs, like I said, they lost Tony Pollard to the Tennessee Titans, and they re-signed good old Ezekiel Elliott. And then they also have their rookie from last year, Rico Dowdle, and Deuce Vaughn as well. But Zeke is going as RB 37 right now, and Rico Dowdle is RB 47. So pretty deep for both of them. Um, Most of the time between these two, I'm a little bit more focused on Dowdle, mainly because you get basically nothing. You can get him for almost your last pick in drafts, $1 if you're doing auction. And I really don't trust Zeke to stay fully healthy for 17 games, if even efficient if he's healthy. But I don't love Dowdle's size either. Part of me thinks they will add a running back before the season starts, so we may revisit this running back room, but I don't think I would mind taking a flyer on either one of them just because of how cheap they're going and potentially getting a starting back for a what we project to be a pretty high flying offense. Should have a lot of opportunities to score touchdowns.
I was a big fan of Dowdle and the small glimpses we got to see of him. I was excited that he could take over the backfield and but the Zeke signing gets me a little more fearful. I don't believe this totally kills his value. Like you were saying, I have him at 40. I have Zeke at 43. Mainly just for the only thing I think Zeke has going for him is possible goal line touchdowns.
Let's talk about the more fun option for fantasy. A lot of people have him as wide receiver one overall, but CD Lamb, uh, he can live up to it in my eyes. Like we said, volume, talent, biggest indicators of fantasy success, and he's got both in a year that Dak needs to prove it to get paid or get a contract potentially. Uh, I think CD's going to get looked at often, and he's going to just be one of the best wide receivers you can take in the first round. And so, really excited about CD. Very similar to Saquon. If you leave the draft with him, you're doing good.
CD's my number one. What else can I say besides he's a freak
The freak.
in the best way.
One more pass catcher I want to talk about, Jake Ferguson. Now, Justin, where do you think he finished as tight end in fantasy football rankings?
Give me 9.
Ooh, really close. Tight end 8. And so that's just something where it seems like Laporta, McBride, and Kincaid are taking all the like rookie hype from last year. And this is a guy who I love late in the tight end position. If you're one of like the last people in a 10 or 12 team to take a tight end, usually Jake Ferguson is there. He's tight end 10 in industry. I love him this year. He only really has CD to compete with. Brandon Cooks is getting older. They got rid of Michael Gallup. Um, he should get great volume. I'm really excited about him as a late round flyer. And so really it's like him, CD, and then Rico Dowdle late maybe are the players I'm targeting on this team. Over under, same as the Eagles, 10.5. Where do you got him?
This honestly, I'm like right on 10. Haley's gonna hate me. Give me the under.
I think I'll be a little different. I think they get to 11. I think this defense is legit. Yeah, it feels like either they make 11 and have a good playoff run, or the house is getting burned down for the Cowboys. So one of the two is going to happen. Division rankings for NFC East. Give me last place, Giants. Third, I'm going to put the Commanders. Abner and Eliana on the edge of their seats right now. Second place, or no, we'll jump to first. We'll skip second. Fly, Eagles, fly, baby. And then Cowboys in second was my ranking.
That I have the exact same ranking, but you also earlier said I'm gonna give a little bit of a. I have the Eagles winning the division, so I don't think they were on the edge of their seat.
Still on the edge of their seats. And that's going to do it for our first divisional previews, NFC East and AFC East. And we'll do more divisions next time, kind of run through all of them there. But any final words for our listeners as they go about the next less exciting part of their day, Justin?
I just want to reiterate, if you're looking for love, we're gonna just totally ditch the whole fantasy football thing, and we're just gonna be a dating podcast where we help lovers find lovers.
Love is Blind, Justin and Matt edition.
We're gonna have a whole new podcast, and it's love during work hours. Don't tell HR. I'm taking that away. Never mind. So that was awful. I'm sorry.
Sweet. Well, this is Justin and Matt, and we're at during work hours. You find us on Instagram, Spotify, wherever you watch your podcasts, YouTube. But thanks for listening, and have a great day.